everyone, this is Neena Gopal. Welcome to Global Express. This is where we analyze and dissect events in our immediate neighborhood and beyond. This week, we're looking closely at the Hamas-Israel peace deal. For the first time since the devastating war that reduced Gaza to rubble, an open-air graveyard for some 47,000 Palestinians and more, and Israel's steady decimation of Hamas, a peace deal may be at hand. It's a ceasefire, but will it hold? It goes into effect on Sunday in Israel and Palestine. Outgoing President Joe Biden has made it one of the main points in his farewell address to the nation. He's claiming credit for the deal, which he says is the exact framework of the deal that he had proposed in May. He said he was thrilled that those who've been held hostage will be reunited with their families. But if the outgoing US President Joe Biden is taking credit, so too is incoming President Donald Trump. The pressure from within Israel for a hostage negotiation has been relentless. Demonstrations by hostage families have continued for months on end. But could peace actually be at hand, is the question. Today, a number of factors are being raised saying that they could derail the hostage release because it's stretched over 42 days. And it's a deal that has come after months of negotiations. First, let's look at the broad agreement. I mean, there's question marks over the Israelis holding dual nationalities. There's a question mark over the release of female hostages, and the comment being that the first hostage to be released will be the youngest hostage of all, a young boy who belongs to the Bibas family. Talking to us today is Dr. Abdulkhaleq Abdulla. He's an expert on the Middle East, professor of political and a senior fellow with the Middle East Initiative of the Harvard Kennedy School's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs. He's a UAE national, a member of Emirati Thinkers, and a chairperson of the Emirati Article Award. So let's start with the rush to get the hostages released before the Biden administration exits Washington. Is this the breakthrough which everyone's been hoping for? Because it's something that Biden wants to see as part of his legacy. He's said as much, that the deal is being worked out in the Qatari capital Doha with both him and Trump's team working together. But Biden has also been bitterly criticized, Dr. Abdullah, by groups such as the Council on American and Islamic Relations, saying he deserves zero credit for this truce, that he spent billions of dollars of American taxpayers' money backing Israel's attack on Gaza. So, what do you think? Will this be his foreign policy triumph? Because after his disastrous handling of the Ukraine-Russia deal, and is it really time that both Trump, Biden, and the Palestinian leadership worked together, and pressured Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, on giving in on this rather than holding on to, but putting so many people's lives in jeopardy?
Nina, thank you for having me. I think this tragic war, this Gaza tragic war, has lasted for too long, 437 days. And so there is, at least, if this peace deal sticks, there is good news for everybody. And I am sure that it's going to be a joyful news for the 2 million people in Gaza who gone through this tragic war and who suffered a whole lot, and their life has been turned upside down for the past 400 plus days. So it's a good news for at least 2 million people in Gaza, but it's also a good news for 2025. We're starting in a good note,
Yes,
2025.
that's right.
So let's stay optimistic about this year too. And it's a good news not just for Gaza and for all of us, 2025, but also it's a good news for Middle East, who's gone through
Yes,
this
for the whole
tragic war.
region.
It had a spillover in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iran, all over the place. It wasn't just a Gaza thing, it was much more than that. So an end to this war is good news for the people of Middle East. The Middle East in general has been the most unstable place on earth for the past a year or two, yes. And I think it's also to mention Qatar, it's a good news for Qatar diplomacy. Qatar diplomacy has been amazing, has been persistent, has been at it. They never give up on it. They did the best. They were the best venue for it. So overall, there is plenty of good news for everybody. Maybe
So
not
are
for
you saying,
Biden.
Dr. Abdullah, that Qatar actually was the mover and shaker behind it? I mean, did they actually reach out to Hamas? Because I mean, there has been a lot of talk now within Hamas of the fact that Yahya Sinwar has been assassinated and his place has been taken by his brother Mohammed Sinwar, who claims that he's now the leader of the Hamas. But there is apparently a council of Hamas leaders in Doha itself that is working very closely with the Qataris.
Look, Hamas is not a one-person movement. It has 18, it has a council of a sort made up of 18 different leaders, and they could easily go back and forth and appoint the next guy. When Yahya Sinwar died, 2 days later, they had a new guy called Al-Hayya. So it's not a one-man show, and it's not
That's
going to go
true.
away just because Sinwar or Ismail Haniyeh has been eliminated by Israel in Tehran and in Gaza. So it's a huge movement, and it has plenty of leaders, and every day one of them come out. So it's not going to end up because Sinwar has gone. And I don't think his brother is the current leader. The current leader, Al-Hayya, is taken over. He is in Qatar. He is moving around. He is trying to escape. Of course, he is wanted by Israel. But at the center of all this is the Qatari diplomacy. They were at its best, and they deserve a lot of credit.
That's a very important point because everyone is giving credit. I mean, Trump himself is claiming credit and saying that he pulled it off because he threatened Hamas with dire consequences. But is it really a real opportunity for the Middle East to break from the past, so to speak? Because there are questions being asked about what will happen to Gaza because the third part of this pact, this peace pact, is talking about an administrative role for a. It doesn't actually spell out how Hamas is going to accept any displacement of their control of Gaza. Am I right in saying that this could actually be a point of contention and could possibly be the one that derails this peace deal and the ceasefire deal?
Look, ceasefire deal is just one piece of good news. We have also Syria to
Mm.
celebrate the end of 50 plus year of a dictator, a bloody dictator has gone away. The new Syria is also a welcome and a fantastic news for everybody, not just for the 25 million Syrian, but the entire region. We have good news in Lebanon. Lebanon is, after all, is being fixed. It's free of Hezbollah. It's meddling in and taking over the Lebanese state, as a matter of fact. So
There's
there
a
are
new
plenty.
leadership. There's a new leadership both in Lebanon and in Syria.
Absolutely.
That I do agree with. And you now have the Syrian president and the Qatari leadership meeting, the Prime Minister of Qatar meeting, and you have Joseph Aoun, the new president of Lebanon. Do you actually see a meeting of minds between all these three to see that peace comes back to the region and Israel does not continue to attack these areas? Will there be a buffer zone? Is that what you think will happen?
Well, the details, there is a lot of details that needs to be worked out, of course, but we know that there is a new Syria there, and a new Syria who's being run by people who look very moderate. They speak nicely, they think nation state, not revolution, so that's a good piece of news right there. Lebanon is free, almost free of Hezbollah's total domination, which lasted for something like 20 plus years. There are new leaders here and there. Iran is in retreat. In the region, and its proxies are no longer the dominant non-state factors in here. Talking about the Middle East, we are definitely in a new Middle East, and this new Middle East hopefully will bring peace to the entire international system. But when you think of success, everybody wants to have a piece of this success. Biden thinks he is the father of it. Trump thinks he is the father of it. Everybody thinks want to have a piece of it. But at the end of the day, it's a time to celebrate, and there are winners and there are losers, and we could think of winners and we could think of losers. We could think of big winners and big losers and small.
So who would you categorize as the big winner? Is Israel the winner?
Well, at this moment, I would say the Gazan people are the biggest winner. Okay, that's no doubt about it. We're all sure about it. Okay, the big winner after the Gazan people are, of course, the American in general, not just Trump, not just Biden, but the American diplomacy. America is back in a big way, Nina, in Middle East, in really big way. That's a
very interesting point.
Of course, they are back. They are back in Europe, by the way, because of the Ukraine. They are back in Asia, where you are at, because of the Taiwan and things like that. Their economy is at its best. It is now they have Trump. In a few days, he will be the president. So America is back, whether it is regionally or internationally, globally. America is, I would consider, a big winner. The biggest loser here is Iran so far. The biggest loser is Hamas.
That is what I was going to ask you. What was Iran's game? Did Hamas actually, by initiating an attack on the kibbutzim, actually derail Iran in the long run? Because Iran was forced to support Hamas, forced to support Hezbollah, unleashed the Houthis in the Bab al-Mandab, and created so much disruption through all these various proxies that it's had its actually arms cut off.
Well, Iran has always been a spoiler of a sort, has always been a source of instability in the region, has always worked through non-state actors such as Hezbollah and the popular mobilization in Iraq and Houthis in Yemen. So they have been really a big headache for the region for the past 40 plus years. So a retreat of Iran losing many of its proxies or weakened proxies by now, and losing many of its bargaining power, it's a welcome news for everybody. So Iran in general, I would categorize as one of the biggest leaders rather than one of the biggest winner of all these things that happened since October 7 and afterwards. So it's a big loser. Russia, by the way, is a big loser. Russia has been kicked out of Syria. Russia is weakened because of the Ukraine war. We have not seen Russian foreign minister visiting the region for a year or so. China, next door to you, is a big loser. China, everybody thought that is coming to the Middle East with the triumphant deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Russia have been a loser. China, we have not seen during this 1 year, not in any sense of the word. So the biggest winner is America. And in America now you have Trump and you have Biden, and everybody is claiming some kind of a piece of this.
If I could just go back to Iran, which fascinates me also, because you had the prime minister, dying in a plane crash, in a mysterious plane crash, and now you have a moderate in the new leadership which has come up. The man is supposed to be a moderate. Do you see any change at the very top, in the sense, could there be a displacement of the power of the, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? Because there's a lot of talk about his son positioning himself as a successor, and a kind of a rift within the, the top leadership, saying that, they want to push for a kind of a relationship with the US, which is already there are talks about backroom negotiations going on between Pezeshkian and Washington.
I think 2024 has been probably the worst year for Iran since 1979. Really, Iran is in shambles, not just because it has retreated on the regional level, but because they have a very tough economic, financial year that has gone through. So if 2024 was a bad year, I think 2024 with Trump coming on board it's going to be even probably worse. Is this a time to say maybe Iran is weakened? Yes, it is. Iran is at its weakest point since 40 years now. And I think we should not underestimate when a regional power suffers defeat outside, it immediately resonates inside. So there is a lot of confusion, a lot of debate between the top elites in Iran, but also unhappiness from the popular side of it. So is 2025 is going to be a year where we will see probably Khamenei, the leader, being 80 something years old, probably might not last too long. I expect something big to happen probably in Iran internally if Trump administration comes and puts more pressure, and if Israel decides to go after the nuclear program that they have
Yes.
in installations, it's probably going to be one of the tough year, maybe a turning point for Iran that we know.
In fact, Dr. Abdullah, Israel did penetrate Iran's defenses in quite a dramatic fashion and exposed Iran's vulnerabilities and the fact that it's even if its underground facilities, nuclear facilities could be at risk. But I mean, Trump is the one who actually squashed the deal, the nuclear deal. So he may just continue to snip away at Iran. Could we look at Israel now? I mean, Israel has also unleashed war on, on its frontier with Lebanon, Syria, Iraq. The Houthis they haven't been able to actually counter very well. But what do you see Israel doing? I mean, in the sense, was Bibi Netanyahu in a great big hurry to please his friend Trump, and is that why he agreed to this ceasefire and the hostage swap deal? The pressure from within, of course, was huge from the hostage families. Is he on the back foot, or is his government, going to go forward under, so to speak, under Trump?
You know, when October 7 happened, we thought that Netanyahu's days are numbered. We thought this
Mm,
is one of this huge military and security breach, and he is the one who is on top of it. So once this war is over, he is done, and his days were numbered. That was the beginning, October 7, 2023. Fast forward today, I think he regained a whole lot because he lashed against Hezbollah and he made good on many fronts. So today he is still, you can't rule him out anymore. If there is an election today, he would probably come back, okay, because he has a solid coalition at the Knesset. And I think the guy is not as vulnerable as we thought he was during at the early stages of October 7. However, having said this, I think Israel looks very formidable militarily. They did amazing thing when it comes to knocking out Hezbollah with this pagers
mm,
things that they used, which was completely something that nobody has expected or heard of.
that's
So
true.
it looks formidable. However, they could use this on two ways, the bad way or the good way. The bad
Hmm.
way is to go after West Bank, annex the West,
Yes.
what is left of Palestine today, completely ignore all the call for a two-state solution. That would be the bad way of taking us into an unknown terrain. But we could also, as a result, have probably a new election and maybe a new leaders, a more moderate leaders will take this as being an opportunity and seize the moment to deliver on a peace with the Palestinians. It depends which scenario is gonna happen, and it is just up for anybody's guess at this moment.
Yeah, that is true because Gaza has seen such devastation, and the West Bank has settlements that by the Israelis have increased quite a bit. But at the same time, they're also talking about the Abraham Accords, being moving forward on that, which would see. I mean, the UAE has already come in very big with Israel on the on the Abraham Accords. Do you think Saudi Arabia will actually now move forward too on it, or will they continue to play, the shy bride, so to speak? Will you think it expand?
Uh, Nina, my take on this is that the deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel is almost 90% done deal.
I see.
Yes, and I think there are a few details here and there, and maybe with the coming of Trump in 2 days from now, the inauguration on the 19th of the month, I think we will have more chance to sort out the remaining 10%. What happened is that the Saudis, the one who pays for this deal is America, and America has the price for it, okay? And I
Yes.
think the Saudis want one, two, three, four things, and if the American can deliver it, defense, a binding defense agreement, a signing of a nuclear program with the Americans, uh, uh, also some kind of a military purchase and weapons deals of a sort. I think that's the American can deliver this one way or the other. And with the Trump now solid in the White House and in the Congress, we might see that. If they get that price, then there is the extra price that the Israelis have to deliver. And the Israelis have to deliver some kind of a roadmap, not necessarily a two-state solution, but a binding roadmap of a sort, binding by the American in charge of it and the United Nations sanction it. If we have these two, three elements, I think we are in for a normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel in
No, that's a
2025.
very positive note, Dr. Abdullah, but there are many people who say that, within Gaza itself, there is so much anger and pain among the young Palestinians that Hamas recruitment actually has been, has gone up in this current time. That, when they were, when they were being bombed by the Israelis, that a lot of the Hamas recruitment happened at the funerals, and when where they were negotiating, saying, if you back us, we'll give you food. If you back us, if you join Hamas, we'll give you medicines and aid. So do you think that anger is something that can be assuaged to some extent, if the Israelis do actually agree to a two-state solution and not push the Palestinians out of Gaza?
Like yourself and like everybody, I saw that New York Times article about the fact that Hamas probably managed to recruit more people. But I think Hamas' day is numbered. I think the Palestinians
Uh-huh.
in Gaza see the devastation, see the hell that they have gone through, and they blame Israel for it, but also they blame Hamas for it. I don't think,
That's interesting. That's
yes,
very interesting.
I think they equally they hate probably Israel as much as they hate Hamas, and I don't think Hamas can take advantage that we signed the deal and we ended it, but many people will never forget the fact that 46,000 Palestinians in
Yes.
Gaza have died, and they would probably blame it mostly on Israel, but there was also on times of reflection, it's Hamas who caused it all. So I think it's Hamas. That article does not really
It
resonate
doesn't
very
actually
well.
tell you the real truth,
I
you're
don't
saying.
think so. I am not sure where they get that number from. Hamas doesn't have the money for it, doesn't have the capabilities. They have a huge task to rebuild the rebels and get over it. That's going to take at least 10 years down the road.
Dr. Abdullah, do you actually feel that Hamas can be trusted then to deliver on this hostage swap? Because, I mean, this ceasefire is not going to be happening for one day. It's going to be stretched over 42 days. And this prisoner swap is going to be happening little by little. I mean, they're going to do women and then elderly and the children. And all the males, that swap is going to happen very late in the day. And can we also trust Israel to keep its word on it and release the Palestinian prisoners that they have taken just during this attack on Gaza?
I don't trust Hamas one bit. I don't trust Israel one bit. Okay, let's clear that. My trust in
Yeah,
Netanyahu is zero. My trust in Hamas is zero. However,
yeah.
there is Qatar is there's Egypt is there's America is there. They are the one who are guaranteeing this deal. So let's hope that these guys have enough leverages over both sides to stick to the deal. There are a lot of details that needs to be worked out, but I am optimistic. But I think 1 day of peace is enough. 2 days of peace, 1 month of peace, let alone 1 year of peace. So let's just be on the optimistic side of it. And I think Hamas is exhausted. Israel is exhausted. This
I
has
was going
been
to say, I mean, I think it has also depleted Israel because they have not been able to. In that article, it talks about how Israel, the IDF forces, the Israel Defense Forces, have gone to areas which they thought they had cleared of, of Hamas, and then had to go back and revisit it because Hamas had retaken those very areas. So it was an ongoing battle that doesn't seem to have ended. And then, of course, there are these supply routes for Hamas. The arm through these underground tunnels which are there in on the Egyptian border with Gaza. That will be monitored much more closely, I think, by.
absolutely. Absolutely. Look, this war has been very costly to Israel, not just economically, the numbers and figures. There are plenty of economic costs that Israel has to go through, and I'm not sure that they want this to be, take any longer. I think that it has been a military cost to Iran, to Israel, in terms of soldiers and officers has been killed militarily. It's been exhausting. But worse than all of this, there is the reputational cost. Israel today is being classified as a country that is almost universally hated, almost everywhere, from America to wherever you go to. And the International Court of Justices have come up with enough evidences that this is a war crime, and Israel now, for the first time, has been accused of committing war crime in Gaza. So it's been reputationally bad, politically bad, economically exhausting, militarily. It's just taken the Israelis into terrain that they have never taken. So because of that, I think it is not just the Trump thing, it's not the American, it is within Israel itself. There is enough pressure that enough is enough. Let's just stop all of this, especially with the Houthis annoyances and with the
Mhm.
Houthis drones and missiles that made the Israelis' life miserable. So everybody's exhausted. And then comes Trump factor. Trump is, of course, somebody who's unpredictable, but when he says something, he goes through with it, unlike the weak Biden, who claims part of this success. But I think the Trump factor is also has to be looked into as being important throughout this deal.
So there's also talk, Dr. Abdullah, about Palestinian groups which are posing to be pro-Israeli, and they are hoping to get picked for that role, to administer Gaza. Do you see that happening? I mean, what do you see happening to Gaza at the end of the day?
Okay, the day after is everybody's guess. Okay, now we have a ceasefire of a sort 2 days from now on Sunday. Hopefully, Israelis will start to pull
Allow
out.
also the humanitarian aid to come through.
Of course, the Israelis have to a little bit withdraw to the borders. The humanitarian effect comes. Look, this day after thing, you have to look at it from two perspectives, maybe three, but two is
Mhm.
important. The first one is the relief track. There is a huge work to be done to fix Gaza back again. The infrastructure, the electricity, the hospitals, the water, everything Gaza just desperately needs for every single thing you can think of. And this should be the immediate day after job for everybody. And here the UAE, the Gulf states will play a major role in the relief.
Mhm.
And it will take years, probably more than 2 or 3 years, just to bring the minimum of normal life to 2 million people living at the moment in refugees camps, and they need to go back to their homes. So that's priority number one for the day after. Not the political, not the security, relief, relief, and relief. Time and again, we need to do, and the world has to come and help. And the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, among others, will leading the way. Then the political, the security of it. Who's going to run Gaza. Here, the Israelis, I think, are becoming devilish. They don't want the Palestinian Authority. They hate
Yes,
the Palestinian Authority. They don't want
yes.
anything to give any credit to them. So they might opt for what is left of Hamas. And I think this is where their devilish Machiavellian Netanyahu
Mm,
comes in. They want a little of
mm.
Hamas to stay to keep the security. But there are countries who are willing to send also some kind of peacekeeping. The UAE, the only country in the world who said, I am ready to do the job.
That's very
Egypt,
interesting.
yes, the Egyptian might join, the Jordanian might join, Moroccan can join, and others. So peacekeeping force just to keep life orderly, security-wise. Israelis, of course, gonna be there. The American gonna be there. That's the second track. Then the third track is the bigger political picture, where we're gonna go to fix this 80 years old Palestinian issues. Palestinians
Yeah,
deserve a state of their own.
they
And
do.
Israel, one day or at one point in time, have to deliver on this. And this is going to be a long, long negotiation. The Israelis good at it. They will prolong it as long as possible. But here is the Saudi factor come in with the normalization package. Maybe that would probably facilitate.
Dr. Abdullah, if I could just go back to Syria, when you brought that up, they were also talking about these buffer zones, in Lebanon and in Gaza and also the Golan Heights. There's pressure now, apparently, from Syria to on Israel to give back the Golan Heights. Will Israel actually ever even do that?
Israel that has come up being emboldened.
Because it's also talking about a corridor within Gaza where they want to set up a mechanism where they, vet every Palestinian who's going from the south to the north right now. So they're taking on the onus of vetting people who going back to their homes in the north. So the idea that Israel will actually back off and allow another peacekeeping group to come in is to me a big stretch.
That's a long way, yes. That's the security and the political leg of it. But it's a huge burden on Israel to see 2 million people going back and forth from the south to north. And I'm not sure that vetting, it's not going to be an easy job and it's going to take a while. So when you go into the nitty gritty of all of this, Nina, I think we might get through a lot of backstage negotiation to facilitate things. But I trust the Qataris at this moment, and I think everybody really wants to have an end to this. And let's just also hope that that strong man that is going to come to the White House, Trump, will be able to really use some stick against Netanyahu, something that Biden never used.
I also want to ask you about Trump actually, because I mean, this is one of my last few questions. Basically, Trump's whole ethos and his whole working plan has always been about real estate. And there was this bizarre story that I read about how his son-in-law wants to convert Gaza into a resort, and this was what was driving Trump's whole peace plan. But I know it's beyond it's not possible at the moment. But do you feel that Trump's foreign policy is sort of also more business related, more business minded than actually about America, supremacy and coming, I mean, America coming back into the Middle East in a big way?
Well, there is Trump, which is very important, and he's coming with a mandate of a sort all over, all over the American political spectrum. But then there is the Trump team too, and I think we need to really put in perspective that he has to listen to his team as much. And now that he is comfortable, he doesn't have to go for the second term. He has done it. He came back in a big way. So he's a very relaxed person this time, unlike the first time, by the way, where he didn't have that mandate. So he's sitting in a very comfortable chair with four strong legs there. So he doesn't really have to worry about anything, and is comfortable. Then comes the time when he has to listen to the team, the security and the political team that he has. And here I think we have a group of people that is with that is next that has to execute some of his thinkings and has some of his visions. But we know one thing for sure: we are in for the Trump world, okay? And the Trump world is mostly unpredictable. He could wake up in the morning and say something and just throws everybody
Yeah.
in the air. But
That's what everyone is worried about, that his business dealings will interfere with the political settlement.
okay, he's the unpredictable, so nobody, even the closest, so not even him sometimes, says a few things. You remember, just he says a few things about Greenland and about Panama and about Canada, and he just throws you off with all these statements. Does he really mean it? That's another thing. But I think beside being unpredictable, he's also decisive. That's very important. When he says something and he means it, he follows on it. Unlike the weak Biden. Biden just showed how weak American leader can be. He could not persuade Netanyahu to do the littlest of things, okay? The littlest of things. He was just that kind of a weak leader, which is not good for the region, which is not good for America. So in a way, we have an unpredictable, but we have also a decisive president, which is in general good for this region and maybe good for the world too.
Now, that's a very interesting point, actually, because I think all kinds of new leaders are emerging across the world right now who are seen. I mean, look at Erdogan, the Turkish president. I mean, he seems to have, extended his writ over, the Syria and so on. So there are new leaders emerging, and I think Trump's administration will have to have a very steady hand on the rudder because there are so many unpredictable, events that could happen. How do you see this impacting, the Chinese? Because the Chinese played a very big role in bringing Iran and Saudi Arabia together. Have the Chinese sort of backed off a little bit, you think? Because Russia, as you clearly said, has, but China doesn't look as if it's capable of doing that.
Well, that
Because
deal that Chinese delivered was between Iran and Saudi Arabia 3 years ago, 2022. I think it was almost a done deal before China jumped in. There was 6 rounds of talks between Iran and Saudi Arabia. They hammered all the details, literally. Mostly in Baghdad, by the way. Beijing was not there. China definitely didn't have any role of it. And so the deal was almost like a ripe fruit, ready for somebody just to jump in. So it was something that maybe a lot of people made a big deal that China is back and this is a diplomatic success. Maybe it was in a way, but I think there has been a lot of exaggeration. What we see now since then, China has vanished, has disappeared.
yeah,
There is no China anymore in the region. So I am not really a big fan of saying that China is a big challenge for America in the region. I don't think that China really matters a whole lot. It's still the second biggest economy in the world, a regional power, but there's no way that they could compete with the diplomatic, political, or military visibility that the American has today. And China has to deal also with some economic problems at home too. And they have to
that's
deal
true.
now with the Trump, and Trump could be very tough, imposing more sanctions in Iran. So China is important, but should not be we should not exaggerate its Middle East visibility.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah, for coming on the program. I mean, we've got to wait and see how this ceasefire takes effect on Sunday and how the 42-day phase will pan out over the next coming weeks and whether this ceasefire will hold. And we can only hope and pray that it benefits, it brings peace to the region and generally has a knock-on effect in Europe and every other point of conflict. Thank you very much, viewers, for watching Global Express. Please click on the new Indian Express website and watch and share the program. Thank you. Thanks very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for having me.